great series of webinars that Chris and crew put together. My name is Jamie Heron. I'm the SUNY Online Program Manager at the CPD there with Chris, and I'm just going to run through a couple quick housekeeping items before we get started. I'm going to be monitoring the chat for the presenters today, but they've asked that we hold questions until the end of the presentation today. So if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, and we'll get to those as they conclude their presentation today. For those of you who need closed captioning or would like to see subtitles, you can go ahead and click on the closed caption button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You might need to make the Zoom screen fit your full screen in order to see that menu. And finally, we have a large group of presenters today, so if we could all manage to keep our mics muted unless we're speaking, it might make for a better recording experience and a listening experience for the rest of us. So I'm going to hand it over to Jay here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jamie and Chris. So our presentation is about embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion in teaching from international faculty's experience. So joining me today, I have another 7 colleagues, and we all were a part of the SUNY Brockport International Faculty Learning Community last year, 2019 to 2020. And we met regularly, actually bi-weekly, last year throughout the semester, like the 2 semesters, including those sudden change because of the pandemic. And then we continue to work together in the summer of 2020. So now our group has been extended to international faculty and staff interest group recognized by our Office of DEI. So without further ado, I'm going to invite my colleagues to do self-introductions. I can go first. My name's Jay Zhang. I'm a professor of special education at SUNY Brockport. Originally, I'm from China. I've been to US for 19 years, I think. 18, 19 years, and been to Brockport about 12, close to, well, approaching to 13 years. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Sadia Chima, and I'm an assistant professor of public relations at Brockport. This is my 3rd year. I've been in the US for a decade now, and I'm very excited to share our experiences and part of our research in this conference as well. So thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janka Szilágyi. I'm originally from Hungary. I'm also a faculty member at Brockport in the Department of Education and Human Development. I've been in the United States for over half, well, actually not half my life, 20 years, and at Brockport for about 13. My area is mathematics education, and I'm just excited to be here and share experiences with you all.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Alexander Moe. I'm an assistant professor of media studies in the Department of Journalism, Broadcasting and Public Relations at the college at Brockport. I'm originally from Oslo, Norway, and I have been in the United States since about 2007.
Hi everyone, my name is Yaolin Chen. I am also from Brockport. Oh, of course, yes. So this is my 4th year at Brockport. I'm assistant professor from Department of Recreation, Therapeutic Recreation and Tourism. So my expertise are mostly tourism management. And so this is I think I have been in the United States since 2007, so it's been a while. And I'm originally from Taiwan. Thanks everybody to be here.
Hello, hi, I'm Tak Nishiyama. I was born in Japan. I grew up in China, Hong Kong, that's part of China now. And I've been in the US since 1988, and I came to Brockport in 2006. Been all over the United States as a part of the job search journey: Boston, Mississippi, Ohio, Hawaii, Washington, D.C. But I'm happy to share what I can so we can learn together to advance our common goal in unison. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is John Harachand and I am originally from Guyana, South America. I've been at Brockport for this is my third year and I'm in the counselor education department. My areas are for research are in relation to immigrants and refugees specifically, as well as just college counseling and general mental health wellness. So I'm excited to be with you all.
I don't know if Claudette has joined us or not. I cannot see.
Yes, I'm here, Jai. Hello, everyone. I'm Claudette Brown-Smythe. I am Jamaican. That's my heritage. I've been in the US since 2007. At Brockport, I'm in the Department of Counselor Education. I'm going to follow what I hear John said in terms of what we need to do to introduce ourselves. Areas of research around multicultural issues in counseling. I'm working on a study with Caribbean immigrants right now, social isolation with college students. So working and doing research around college student mental health is also part of what I do, in addition to multicultural issues, working with supervision immigrants, especially Caribbean immigrants, and multicultural issues in counseling.
I'm trying to move forward to the next slide. It seems like. So that's our crew. And I want to also thank Chris for establishing the faculty learning community into Brockport. You introduced it and then we carried it on. And luckily last school year, it was restored and our SELT interim director brought this back so that our group was able to meet together. And we were thinking about several learning outcomes towards the end of this presentation. We will review some faculty representation data, especially the comparison between Brockport and the US. It's an ongoing process. We're still collecting more data, but we're going to share what we have right now. And the second one is we want to share with you our experiences and talk about the challenges and also share about some strategies that it had been working for us, and we used those to support our students' success as well. And the next one will be we try to explore ways to engage all members in an inclusive and a positive campus climate. So everybody can be included and contribute. And that will lead to the Q&As, and we have a small task for you before the end of our presentation. So you're going to share with your debrief with us. So with that being said, I'm going to hand this mic to Tech.
So the next three slides that we'll see together on the computer screen is going to serve as a broad background. It's a context in which we like to place the following discussions in greater detail. So what we will be doing in the next 5-6 minutes, several minutes or so, is to paint the picture of diversity in terms of ethnicity with the broad stroke. So what we see the general picture with the graphs and with some numbers, so we can have sense as to where this college Brockport has been, and where it's going, projected future, in all likelihood, in years ahead. So the first slide that we're seeing is the diversity in terms of ethnic origins, ethnicity that we see not here at Brockport, but it's broad across the United States of America. And the vertical axis that we see on the left is the academic ranking from professors down to associate professor, assistant professors, instructors, adjunct, and lecturers. And the horizontal line bar is a percentage from 0 on the far left, increasing all the way to the right 100%. And some of the extrapolated message that we can get out of this particular slide is that across academic ranks, from professors down to lecturers, white males constitute the largest group. This is the pattern across the United States of America in terms of ethnicity. So this is across the United States of America, across academic disciplines. And the second largest group that we see on a particular slide is the white females. So majority in terms of the race, majority race group across the United States of America that we see in this slide is Caucasian. And the second largest group is Asian Pacific Islanders, males and females put together, and then Black males and females, and by far the minority of the minority is Hispanic males and females and American Indians. And this data came from the United States Department of Education. This is the context in which we like to place Brockport in, so we have a further discussions down the road. If we could move to next slide, please. Thank you. So again, this is the picture that we can see with the data drawn from the United States of America right next to the data we have at Brockport. So the vertical axis is the percentage from 0 to 100, from bottom to the up. And horizontal bar, we have those groups of people categorized and shown in accordance with ethnicity, race. And just like in the slide that we just went over, white Caucasians, males and females put together, occupies the largest majority group. So that's certainly the case of Brockport in the US. But if you only look at the white race bar across the United States and the Brockport, although there are variance in time chronology involved, Brockport 2020, US year 2016, Brockport campus a little bit wider than the national average. If you look at the racial category Black or African American, Brockport figure as of 2020 is similar to the figure that we have in the United States of America. And what we start to see difference is this ethnic group of Asian/Pacific Islanders. Brockport is a liberal arts college, doesn't have a college of engineering, doesn't have a college of music. That's where Asian Pacific Islanders can occupy a greater number. But because of the liberal arts concentration of Brockport, it seems as if there is a far less number, just about half the US figure shows on Brockport. Hispanic and Latino is just the same. Half the US national average shows here at Brockport. Thank you. If we could move on to the next one. So this is, I believe, the new figure that is shown to many of us, including those we presenting together here today. The number screenshot that we have is a very, very small picture of what has been going on here at Brockport. So this is the number of faculty, typically assistant professors with work visa called H-1B labor visa, number of applications supported by SUNY Brockport Human Resources. And we were able to get some figures in the last figures of the last 10 years, not necessarily over the last 20 years or last 30 years. And what we have is a very low number of H-1 work visa supported by Brockport HR in the year 2010. And then what's remarkable about it is over the last 10 years from 2010 to this year, 2020, the number of H-1B visa, which means international faculty here at Brockport on campus, show a modest increase, to put it mildly. That's what appears here in this graph. But in terms of numerical increase, the number of international faculties who apply for H-1 visa increased by 500% in 10 years. The number of international faculty increased 5-fold in 10 years. So this is the projection that the projection that we can see, we're likely to see in the next 20 or 30 years. There's a greater number of international faculty here on campus, and there'll be a greater demand for the college to better understand how the international faculty can acclimate themselves and how international faculty herself can do better. How can we serve better for the college and for the students? Thank you.
This is Yanka, and when we think about a sense of belonging to a community, to a group of people, I think we all have our stories, we all have things that stand out to us, we all have things that might be more important or we consider more important than maybe others, but there are several aspects that researchers have pointed out that have an impact of our sense of belonging. And then our sense of belonging in turn impacts things such as our satisfaction with our job in this case. Also, how I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. How productive we are at that place, how happy we are at that place. And so this slide just shows some of the things that researchers have pointed out. There's been studies with international faculty and how they feel about their belonging to their institution. And they pointed out this ability to make decisions about various aspects of their work, such as what courses they teach, what service activities they participate in, and also their research areas. Another area is interactions with colleagues. And in particular, international faculty, based on the research, tend to struggle with overcoming this feeling of not belonging, this feeling of being an outsider, and also an ability to find your people. So find those groups and networks that support you. And then a third aspect or factor is what recognition you receive for your work and how you feel about that recognition, how important you feel that recognition is. I think it's also important to differentiate between belonging in your department and institution on the one hand, and on the other hand, belonging in your neighborhood and community. I think those are two different things. And I just like to ask if anybody would like to share or contribute, but what makes you feel like you belong, whether in your department or institution or your community? What are those things that are important to you? And like I said, this will be different to all. I think I'll just share from my own perspective, and I've been here at Brockport for quite some time. I established the family. I'm married to a US born partner. And so I think for me, it was, and although productivity is important, and for me, it's really those social relations. And I come from a collectivist society. I'm originally from Hungary, and although most of Europe tends to be more individualistic, like the United States, Eastern European countries, although Hungary is kind of in between Eastern Europe and Western Europe, we are collectivist. And so those have an impact on your expectations for other people, how you approach relationships, And so for me, it was really, really important to have such people around me, both in the department as well as the community. And I think I was fortunate enough to have colleagues like Jay, colleagues who have those shared values with me. And I think for me, that's most important in that sense of belonging. But for other people, it might be something different. So if ever anybody would like to share, feel free. Otherwise, just, think about what's important to you and what makes you belong. And this is just an interesting area to think about. And it's also one of the areas that we're researching with the group this year. So we'd like to hear your thoughts. You can just respond in the chat. And I see some people are responding already, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Janka. I'll just kind of wrap up the discussion. What started out with, what is the population of international faculty like at Brockport and how it compares to the international sort of statistics, and the idea that Janka talked about in terms of, how we belong, or this as our sense of belonging as an international faculty, and how it is influenced, where it's coming from, and what factors really make it impactful for us. The next section, the section that I'll be talking about, I think the next 3 slides, I'll be highlighting some of the challenges, instructional challenges that we as international faculty face, and where do they come from? So the most important, I think, the central sort of theme for our presentation today are the 6 dimensions of national culture that were identified by Gert Hofstede. And this 6D model is a good starting point. And I just wanted to share it with you all before I went into and talked about teaching effectiveness. So these 6 elements really shape how cultures play a role in defining who we are and how we react in certain situations. What things are important to us. I think the idea of individualism and collectivism, which was just discussed earlier by Janka, is important. Most of these countries in Europe, particularly in America, if I talk about, are more individualistic in nature, which means that the I is more important. My personal goals are more important than the group's goals. And collectivist nations, people go hand in hand, they take decisions together. It's important to see the perspectives of the group and kind of work in harmony with the group. So that's one example of the dimension. The others are here on the slide. I'm not going to go into the details of all of them, but they're here for you to understand that, yes, national cultures, where all different international faculty at Brockport are coming from, or even across the US in educational institutions, it's important for us to keep these in mind when we are thinking about classrooms and instructional strategies. So next slide, please. This is just an example, of 3 countries that I put forward. There are 3 different faculty members that I thought, I just compare the data. On Hofstede's website, which I have posted the link here, you can actually go in and compare your own country's 6D model against yours and see where you come from. If you were born there and you spent a significant part of your life there, how it really shapes you as a person, and how you think about individualism, masculinity versus feminine, countries, uncertainty, avoidance. So all these 6 dimensions, depending on how much time you've spent in that country, will really shape the way you bring things to the classroom. Like when I think about my own example, I was born in Pakistan, but I did my O-levels and A-levels from Cambridge in London because my father was posted there. So, and then I spent a significant time in America. Actually, I've spent the most part of my life in America. So when I think about these transnational roots, I kind of feel lost when I think about this country comparison because, different times, different phases of my life, I was maybe born in a more masculine country, but I spent some time in a country where, long-term orientation or uncertainty avoidance was a very different sort of a game. So this is a good way to kind of go back to our roots and then think about where we are situated, which really changes the way we will see students. So if I'm situated in the United States, I have to think about these ideologies in terms of power distance, individualism, masculinity, and then shape my curriculum in that social context. So I'm going to move forward. Next slide, please. And I am going to basically share how researchers have talked about teaching styles, particularly how they have also integrated that within the concept of culture and national culture and its impact on students' motivations. I think in the pandemic, we are also dealing with that way more than we dealt in the classroom because motivation is down. And then as a professor, teacher, scholar, you really have to think about what is your style and then also match that style with, of course, the technology and the changes that we're dealing with. So the first thing is to think about what are the different types of teaching styles that researchers have discussed. And I think you'll find it very, very much relevant, particularly because of this pandemic. The researchers, Ryan and Desai, came up with the theory of self-determination. It's a widely used theoretical framework in psychology. It has been applied in gamification. It has been applied in personality development, identity, education, activism. I myself really work well with this theory because I've used it in gaming context, I've used it in educational context, I've applied it in activism, and these are two overarching sort of notions that this self-determination theory presents, which is based on autonomy and control. Autonomy, in essence, is when you are working with the needs and preferences of people that you're dealing with, and controlling style is when when you're actually just defining those preferences, deciding how students should feel and think and behave in a classroom. So when you're autonomy supportive, you are basically thinking about students how to basically engage them in a way that you bring out the best in them. You're satisfying their basic psychological needs. You explain rationales, you use informational sort of language in the classroom, you give them more sort of space, to think outside of the box, you give them a good understanding of the assignment, but you're willing to listen and you're willing to integrate their ideas. You're also displaying patience. Sometimes students will challenge us, and that's good or bad, is also dependent on what your style is and what you're used to. On the other hand, if you're controlling, you are probably thinking about offering incentives. I'll give you some sort of an extra credit if you submit this assignment, or something on those notions where students rely on those incentives. You use a pressuring language. Some faculty stick to, if they have created some assignment guidelines, how flexible are you in working with a student who might want to take it a step further, and how can you push a student who is a laggard to make that student join others in the classroom, in terms of learning. And then displaying impatience. Some faculty actually are not really in line with students, and most of that goes back to the generation of students. There's lots of discussion on that this new generation Z, has issues. They have some sort of emotional issues that need to be dealt with, how to motivate them in the classroom. So all of this goes back to self-determination theory of how, as teachers, you can assess which is your style, and then think about that style, where it's coming from, and how it is impacting students' motivations and benefiting them in learning activities. So the next important thing is where are we developing these beliefs? The first thing is, of course, the culture itself. Because if you're coming from a collectivist culture, groups' goals are more important, right? You want to think about how a group will benefit the most. Mostly what happens in a collectivist culture, a controlling style of teaching is more beneficial because you want people to push towards the group's goal rather than their own personal goals. And then if you think about beliefs, where they're emanating from, then there are multiple factors. The first one could be, as a teacher, you have decided that some maybe controlling aspect is more effective than an autonomy supportive autonomy supportive style. Why? Because maybe you've used some incentives in the classroom, and you've seen that if I use those incentives, or if I use this language, students' motivation gets turned on. And the last is, sometimes the ease of implementation. It's easy. This controlling style is fast, it's direct, so it's not going to really impact the student that much. Whereas in an autonomy supportive, it's time consuming. You're bringing in students' interests and preferences into the assignments or into the curriculum. The more you endorse that, it takes a little bit of more effort from our part, and then we are overloaded with so many things as faculty, which is another dimension altogether. So the idea of discussing this teaching style with, and integrating it with national culture becomes integral then. How would you decide which teaching style is more effective? Maybe in certain disciplines, a certain type of style is more effective than the other. And then you think about these engagement and instructional techniques based on, if it's controlling, maybe I'll, if I want students, for instance, for my writing intensive class, it's a PR writing class, I have certain goals in mind and I cannot shift them. So I use a very controlled teaching style because my aim is for students to write better or learn a format. So based on my learning objectives, I kind of shift where I am, in terms of these two dichotomies. So it's not like a professor has to be completely autonomy supportive or controlling, but it could be seen as a continuum. You keep shifting depending on the context that you're placed in. So I guess, this is my spiel on how we would think about bringing our culture as international faculty and our teaching style. And, recently I worked with Jay and we wrote a book chapter about Generation Z, and particularly, how these elements play a huge role in the way we want to motivate this new generation, to learn and engage them, which is a challenge. There's tons of research on how this generation is struggling with emotional stress, depression, anxiety, and all of that is heightened or escalated to a completely different level when we think about the pandemic. So that's basically something that I want you to think about. I know we'll be taking questions in the end, but maybe think about what is your teaching style, and how did you adopt that? Where did it come from? And then secondly, what kind of, tactics or techniques do you use when it comes to both of these styles, if it makes sense at all? Thank you very much.
All right. Hi. So hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about faculty and student interactions. So what Sadia was talking about in the previous section was basically talking about, hold on, I have to ask, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. So in terms of, in addition to figure out what is your teaching style, and now I wanted to also share, there's actually another important factor that might kind of shape your teaching style, your teaching philosophy, which is faculty-student interaction. And in this section, I would like to also invite all my colleagues. So you're welcome to share your own experiences with interacting with students. Okay, so when I'm talking about interactions, this is not only the interactions in the class, it is also applicable to outside of class context. Okay, so and especially because this panel is international faculty, so I also want to talk about how international faculty actually bring our own culture into this, this context to interplay with the interaction with students. Okay, so first of all, expectations. So there's sometimes behavioral or non-behavior. Okay, and so behavior, the example would be, for example, if the I mean, this is also applicable to from an international student's point of view. If you, you know, so it's not only you're as a faculty coming from international background. Sometimes if you have an international student, that would also applicable. So in some of the cultures, they the students or faculty coming from that culture has tend to when there's a group group discussion, people tend to let other people talk first, versus some of the culture they would very trying to talk, just not really interrupting others, but they just wanted to talk whatever they wanted to talk. But however, with those more collectivism, usually the culture, they are more, you know, wanted to let other people talk. They might as perceived as non-participation from their faculty. Okay, so that might be a little different behavior expectations from both faculty and student point of view. Okay, so non-behavior, so it might be, you know, different attitude towards the instructor role or faculty role in the classroom setting. Okay, so basically coming mostly in an Eastern culture, the teacher or the professor in the classroom is, you know, usually it's kind of authoritative figure. You're a king or queen in the classroom. Okay, so it's very, so basically there's a hierarchical kind of situation in the classroom. Okay, so I remember in first year, I started my master here in United States. I was surprised that the professor want us to call them by their first name. To me, that was totally impossible. I would never thought about I could call my professor by first name. So it took me about 5 years. I finally decided, okay, maybe it's time to change, because one of the professors, I think it's a doctoral seminar, my professor told me, said, if you don't address me as my first name, I will address you as Miss Chen. Okay, so then I realized, okay, so I have to also change the perception between the student and the faculty in the classroom setting. And then also another kind of plays role into the faculty student interaction is the concept of respect versus culture of entitlement. Okay, so I kind of mentioned a little bit about this. So especially coming from, I'm talking about myself, so coming from heavily impacted by Confucianism, which is a teacher or professor is usually really, really well respected everywhere, okay, in the society, okay, versus the culture of entitlement. I guess entitlement probably not the best word, but so in the classroom setting, when I came to United States, I kind of feel like this feeling that, oh, some of the students, they would think that the teacher or the professor should be at their service. So it's more like a customer in, like a customer in, a customer in the a kind of that kind of relationships. Okay, so that is okay. Right, thank you. Entitlement is a perfect word. Okay, so because I don't want to have this negative connotation, because we definitely don't want to criticizing or trying to compare different cultures, but that's just our experience. And then in the previous, Yanka and Sadia also talk about individualism and collectivism. So that's also would impact the interaction between faculty and student. Okay. And so the last one is undergraduate versus a graduate student. So that's just kind of a comparison or little differences between undergraduates, probably more less independent and less mature versus graduate student in most of the cases. Okay, so that is just kind of, you also kind of need to tailor or change a little bit of your mindset, or when you're trying to interact with student. Okay, so let me see what else. Okay. Okay, so I saw Takashi's in the chat. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so Takashi, you usually would have the student to call you Dr. Nishiyama.
Yeah, I think it's a practice across the entire history department at Brockport, actually. It's not only me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think our previous chair also told me that they would like student address us as a Dr. Chen or you know, has a title. Okay, but yeah, anyways, but this is definitely would never ever happen. I mean, address first name would definitely never happen in Taiwan, where is I'm from. Okay, so Alex said, as a Scandinavian, go by formal title, doctor, last name, because I'm aware that I'm increasingly masculine environment. Oh, okay. I see. So thank you everybody sharing. So is there anyone who want to share some of your experience interacting with students? All right. So if not, I will turn it over to my next colleague.
Yeah, so we also want to further look at a mentorship with students. So beyond simply the day-to-day classroom interactions, using these concepts, or looking at it from the lenses of the concepts discussed previously. We also want to look at academic advisement. And one thing to consider that we also, of course, want to consider is first of all, the discipline. This can vary very much, you know, how this communication style and even among non-internationals can vary by whether or not you're in the humanities or if you're in engineering or sciences. As much as it can, you know, in for example, places, branches in the military, this can also vary a lot based on where people are stationed, right? So some questions that we want to see if you know, international faculty are they feel like they have an impact on students to achieve their academic aspirations. Depending on, you know, of course, controlling for the faculty or international faculty's personal experience. You know, did they go to graduate school in the United States? Did they go elsewhere? Are they aware of simple things like a lot of colleges these days are waiving like the GRE or things like that, and the process itself, like you're going to need letters of recommendation, you should maintain a GPA of 3.0 or higher, just small things like that. Does the faculty have the ability to maybe direct what, you know, knowing what fields are out there, what niches are being studied, what could be a thing that is kind of poised for future growth, you know, 5 years from now or in the future? What is a field that is maybe shouldn't discourage anyone from studying anything, but what is a field that could be like, you know, you could do this, but inside of that field, there's this niche that maybe the student haven't thought about. Do the faculty themselves see themselves as in a humble kind of way, as a role model on how to go about pursuing an academic career? That could also vary, of course, by discipline. And then on the second bullet, kind of looking at what are some ways that faculty can kind of use to build rapport with the student. So the first time you enter a classroom, there is 50 pairs of eyes looking at the professor. How do you then transcend that and form mentorships with maybe a select few? And how does students come to international faculty in an unsolicited manner and they say, can you serve as a director for my thesis, or things like that? Small things, communication traits that go back to the formalized research from Geert Hofstede that was presented on earlier by Sadia. These things can, did you watch the game last night? By just simply alluding to the game, maybe in some places they know exactly what you're talking about if you're in a bigger college town. Or in our area, it would mean maybe if you watch the Buffalo Bills, right? So just small stuff like that. And then how do you control for students with diverse backgrounds? How does international students deal with diversity in itself? Diversity as it also is communicated in the United States. Diversity, I did my formal doctoral training in Texas. Diversity in Texas, it evokes a whole different host of variables than it does in upstate New York. So that's another thing too. Is the faculty aware of whether or not they are in the Northeast or the Southwestern parts of the United States based on these things? Then the faculty can maybe take that into consideration when forming such relationships. And to go to the comment about, how do you straddle the point about, stereotyping in terms of these things is, I liked Takashi's comment in terms of how faculty might not necessarily be on a pedestal just because they're from some kind of country. Faculty, like Janka was talking about, maybe come from different socioeconomic groups from their culture as well. Personally, I am here, not on behalf of my country. I am here on behalf of myself. But unfortunately, or involuntarily, I'm also a representative of my country, and I'm fine with that as well. So there's also the concept of like the mainstream and the kind of niche parts of societies around the entire world. So that's what it makes, so for example, like the dimensions, cultural dimensions, like maybe it's a little bit stereotypical, like people from Scandinavia or like German language countries, do they or don't they have a higher uncertainty avoidance? Like it's the way that you can deal with uncertainty. To some degree, maybe in the US, people can deal with it a little bit better. Maybe in Latin American cultures, they deal with it even better. And that can form some kind of a cultural identity without becoming necessarily stereotypical. So I definitely see myself in some of them, specifically the one about uncertainty avoidance. And these things actually, if you think about it, they also impact how infrastructure and bureaucracies in these cultures are also implemented, right? It's like almost like a collective, concern about certain things that are maybe deeply personal as well. So also then, how has one's experience as being mentored to shaped the student, the faculty? So if you are a faculty who did a doctoral training in the United States, but you had an international advisor, maybe from the same culture, or maybe even from the same language culture, then that is both a great advantage, perhaps to the faculty's career, but also maybe a slight disadvantage when dealing with students from, and mentoring students. Simply going back down to the rapport building and things like that. So also on the contrary, there could have been a struggle at some point as a mentee. So now the faculty might try to alter that experience, or say that this is a way to jump through the hoop of fire, kind of thing. And then also, it goes back to also maybe some cultural, I don't want to say that it's from a specific culture, but how does a mentor then either shut down or make students' aspirations, make them autonomously, so like, does the mentor have an inclination to shut down like hopes and dreams for something that is more realistic again, going back to uncertainty avoidance, you have to do what's rational and realistic to get a job. Or, hey, last year we didn't have these inventions, so you might as well try. And the faculty might have the almost like an altruistic perception, like this might benefit the, macroeconomics in the far or near future, right? Now again, being able to or willing to kind of give students some kind of uplifting remarks, such as, "Hey, good job on that." Even though the faculty might, your level of feeling sincere or the level of feeling like not real, it can be a cultural thing. So for example, when I came to the United States in 2007, I always wondered why people asked me how I was doing. And I realized sometimes you can answer that with the same question, right? How are you? I'm good, how are you? Right? In that the spectrum of being good, like how do you feel in a day, is much more like, you don't have to elaborate upon it. Where I'm from, it would be like, oh yeah, this happened and I slipped on a piece of banana peel this morning, it was terrible. And so those are things that also come into that in terms of being able to see, hey, great job on this. Thank you for sending that email back to me fast. Just showing some kind of a manifest language, like you're actually saying it. Maybe in your culture, that will be redundant. There are many things that I have thought about in terms of this as well, right? And from my culture being here. How easy has it been for the mentor to adjust to the US education system? Controlling for the gender, discipline, and specifically where the person is from, can have interesting findings there as well. And then maybe lastly, the role as mentors. How does the mentor or the faculty see themselves as equivalent to or non-equivalent to US-born colleagues, right? Keep in mind, students might not be aware which colleague is more or less productive, goes to more conferences, etc. The word of mouth among students can be about how the faculty is in the classroom. It could come along with a whole host of privileges as well. Students might measure these things in a whole different way. Does the student feel like the faculty is supporting, or the mentor is supporting, and along with the entitlement and collectivism, kind of concepts as well. And now, and then lastly, we have some questions about how the international faculty sees themselves as congruent or incongruent with the goals and the mission of the institution that they're at. So whether or not they want to do, whatever concerns they have can be derived from this this personal experience as mentors, how mentorship, being a mentor, is incentivized or not, how it is something that is talked about in department meetings, or something along those lines. So with that, sorry, I'm going to read the comments as I wrap up here. If anybody want to chime in on some kind of a mentorship experience, that would be great. And if not, I will give it up to the next person.
All right, so moving or pivoting over to the question of how do faculty manage student issues when they occur, and how do we resolve them? And I think this is kind of a loaded question in and of itself, but as we seek to navigate this time of the pandemic specifically, and there's multiple pandemics if you would like to conceptualize it that way, in terms of racism, in terms of the COVID-19, and in terms of like just an economic crisis that our world is experiencing right now. So we're seeing our students come in with heightened levels of anxiety that were there in and of itself from the program, but also there from the experiences of life. And as we are interfacing with them, we need to be mindful of how it is that we're responding to them as they come in with those heightened levels of anxiety. And one of the things that we put down here is rewiring our own thinking. In terms of when our students come into the classroom, it is very likely that they are going to be presenting with their own levels of what they think they should have been expecting, or they might have heard from other students who might have taken a course with us in the past. And now them actually living the experience might be very different. And as a result, they might come to and almost in a sense, use you as a target to say that you might not be doing X, Y, or Z, or it's not, or the syllabus is not as clear or as they might have liked it to be. And I think what then that does to us is that we start second guessing ourselves, right? We start thinking that, are we cut out for this? And there's some sort of dissonance that takes place between us as faculty and our students. It sometimes ruptures relationships in and of itself, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And I think it comes back to us as saying, were we trained for this? You know, and hopefully that is the answer. The resounding answer would have been yes, we were. We have the qualifications to be where we are in the roles that we have. And rather than second guessing ourselves, and rather than taking on the anxieties that our students present with, that we then kind of almost slow them down in the process and slow ourselves down in the process and think, is this really me as they're trying to target, or is this about me as a faculty member, or is it something that they're wrestling with that they don't know how to contain fully, and it's being projected onto me in the process, right? So how do I then work with them? And that really comes down to us rewiring our thinking. I think this kind of alludes to the issue of whether it be us as trained from an individualistic perspective versus collectivist perspective. And again, they might be coming in with that sense of, I guess, I believe it was Ray who used the term, yes, it was entitlement, you know, but maybe they are coming from a place of entitlement, and we as faculty need to slow down and say, that is not, if I'm not from that same cultural expectation, that I acknowledge that to them, and almost letting them know where it is that I might be coming from, and also so that we almost demystify the process, or even identify like the elephants in the room, right? Because we know that it's the sense of entitlement that they might be coming with, and kind of like calling that out, hopefully doing it respectfully, but also saying that they, as the student, needs to be open-minded in understanding that there are other cultural experiences that exist, and knowing how to navigate those cultural expectations in a respectful way. And I think that kind of like leads into the second point of setting or resetting our own expectations, in that when we're working with our students and we're creating, like we might have our syllabi set up, that we're also in a place of self-reflection and in a place of our own awareness, that when students do come in and they might present things to us, that we're also not being defensive, but trying to, as best as possible, incorporate what it is that they might be saying. It's sometimes very difficult, at least I know for myself personally, when I would get evaluations at the end of the semester, I try to do so during a time that is not closely associated with, like, if I'm in a headspace that I need to be doing something or caring for myself, that I don't have that be the time that I read those comments, but also making sure that when I read those comments, I have a place or persons to process those with, because sometimes it can be really discouraging. And sometimes it may come off as, how is this even possible? Because I think I've been doing this well, you know, but almost not taking it personally, because a lot of the time students, I've found that because it's so anonymous, they sometimes use that as a targeting place to create further discouragement or even to like just question the validity of our experience as faculty. So being mindful of that too, and resetting the expectations that so when I go into class the next time, I usually sometimes, and this might just be me being jaded, but I would come into class and I would tell students, you might hate me at the end of this semester or even early in this semester, and that is okay. But I think that at the end of the day, my role is not for you to like me. My role is to equip you with the skills that you need to be able to do the work that you're going to be doing. And by virtue of being a mental health counselor, my work is on dealing with other people's minds. This is it's an important job. It is a regulated, it's a licensed profession. So that in and of itself adds to the importance or the, I kind of categorize it as there's a sacredness to it by virtue of us working with the human mind. So kind of setting those expectations and being able to revise them as it's happening. So like just as the pandemic has been unfolding, I might say to my students, in reality, if we were in class physically, you might have been doing journals each week as a reflection to kind of like cut down on the time that they're physically interfacing with a screen. I cut back on the journals, and I said, rather, I'll expect you to come into class and have much more lively discussions, and I'll be basing a lot more of my time or your participation on the discussions that we do have. So I make that clear to them, spell it out in the syllabus, but also keep reinforcing it, especially during the early parts of the semester, so they know that that's what I'm looking for as well. And then being mindful of our experience and our expectations. I know for myself, as a newer faculty member coming in, and even to today, I would say that the imposter syndrome effect is real, it's loud, it's clear. It rears its head at multiple places within my professional life. But also I think that having the students, when they come in and they kind of question things for you, especially things that you know that might be, especially when I might be bringing in a lot of my cultural experience, my own narratives from life that I think would inform the curriculum that is being presented, and having students almost discount what I might be saying or sharing, I think that furthers the conversation of saying, man, you're more of an imposter, like you feel like you're an imposter. Yet I think, again, just to be mindful of that our experiences are hopefully shaping them. But I think that comes back to a term that I really like to use of being intentional and making sure that everything that we do lines up with what they're currently needing to learn and needing to do, and also kind of like making the practical connection between, okay, I might be having you reach out to people in the field and conducting interviews and having them inform your work, and they might ask, well, why is that relevant? But then I would say, as a future professional counselor, you're going to be in the place of having to consult with like family physicians, with school administrators, with teachers at multiple levels, and you need to develop the skill to be able to know how to do so appropriately. And this is why you're learning it through the context of, let's say, an assignment, so that it then translates hopefully seamlessly into the work that you will do in the future. So really being intentional in how we do things. And I do think that transparency often helps in sort of dispelling the clouds of mystery that might exist between us and our students, and hopefully help resolve some of the challenges that we experience. And with that, I'll turn it over to our next speaker.
I wonder if Claudette is still here, because I know she has to leave for another obligation.
I'm still here.
Okay, do you want to invite lead this discussion?
Yes, I could put and I apologize. I do run a group, and the students are a group counseling that I need to go to. So when we look at international faculty contributions to an inclusive and diverse climate, there is the opportunity for so many things to happen. Faculty could be the bridge to other countries, can help with study abroad, but also even within the campus community, within the class, within the department, could be exposing individuals to different cultures that are not representative here. One of the things about international faculty is that they bring a different perspective on diversity. And this is also dependent on where the individual is coming from and their own exposure. So for example, I grew up in a country where it was predominantly individuals of African descent. Coming to the US and becoming a minoritized citizen, that can have an impact on the individual. It did have an impact on me in the beginning, and I had to reclaim my sense of self. And so talking to other individuals is important, but also helping them to recognize that sometimes the perception that they have of the other country isn't correct. When I got here, I came here, this is my second wave of career, and one of my colleagues where I was asked me, when you go back to Jamaica, can you live in a house? I really did not know how to answer that question because I've always lived in a house that is natural and normal for me. And there was another Jamaican there who explained to me that they thought that we lived in trees, we lived in huts and whatever. For me, I keep saying that Jamaica is so close to the US, there's no reason for somebody not to understand what's happening in these other cultures, because there is also the internet. There's a thing called the internet, and there's cable television, there's world news. And so perhaps I came with a sense of what was happening here that wasn't real. And so we can share a different perspective about diversity. We can also help with this ethnocentrism, where there's this constant looking inward. And I am not looking inward on American culture. I am using my own context to understand that. And sometimes there could be dissonance there. So helping others to recognize there are others, there are other opinions, there are other views, there are other ways of doing things, and really honoring this diversity that we say that we want to look at. Another way I think international faculty can contribute to the inclusive and diverse climate is by enriching the community with their thoughts, with teaching style, with their approach to mentoring. Common things that everybody knows is that, everybody, oh, Jamaica, you have nice food, Chinese, nice food, whatever. But outside of the food, outside of how they exoticize foreign country or some foreign country, there are different things that we can bring to the table, and utilizing this to enrich the campus community, having days when we could share there. We celebrate a lot of US holidays, and we do not take into consideration that sometimes there are holidays that our students who are international have, or there are different things that we can do. What if we had like an international day on campus? How enriching that would be for everyone. Where we could share whatever it is. Again, that would be acknowledging that there's this population on campus and wanting to learn about them as much as we need to learn about the culture here. So instead of a one-way street where we're always learning and accommodating and sometimes assimilating into the other culture, how can we have a sharedness where the campus is learning about our diverse culture, understanding what our needs are, and then seeing how these can help to enrich the climate that we are working in. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or any comments that they want to share. I will see where I find the chat. So cultural sensitivity, definitely. I think even the discussion earlier on about how we address individuals is important. The distance when we're talking to individuals, the extent to which we're definitely looking in their face or not. All of those are some things that I think we can help them to understand. And when we have international students on campus, I think if we are teaching and sharing this with them, when we have those students coming from different international background, then they will start understanding students' behavior within the classroom. Humor is always a good one. And sometimes we pass it off as humor, but many of these are microaggressions, and we also need to address them with the individuals. So that's my short contribution. I pass it to the next person.
Thank you. I'm having trouble unmute myself. So, so I will just talk very briefly about what we did as a faculty learning community, because we really find it's powerful and productive when we do collaborate together. The faculty learning community provided a safe and collegial platform for us to share experiences, discuss strategies, provided supports to each other emotionally, and also with some very practical strategies we could take away and implement into our classrooms. And also we conducted scholarship very actively. So we have a long list of like peer-reviewed journal articles, presentations at all different levels. And another thing is after 1 year of our faculty learning community, when it was ended in May last year, we still worked on it, and we proposed and formalized this international FLC into an international group. Right now we have, we extended from 10 members to 18 members just by like a 1 week Daily Eagle post. So I think we're going to open the window for Q&As if there's any. We have only 2 minutes-ish.
If anybody asked a question earlier in the chat that they'd like to re-up, I think most of what was going on in the chat were comments reinforcing what each of the presenters were saying. There were some side conversations about similar or related issues, but if anybody has a question, please feel free to post it in the chat.
In the meanwhile, please think about those things, like if you have 3 things you have learned from this workshop, if there are 2 questions you still have that you would like to chat with us for further discussion, and if you have found 1 strategy that you learned from today's workshop and plan to implement to your own teaching or interacting with students or with your colleagues, that would be great. So with that, I think we are running out of time. If no further discussions or questions, I just want to thank to Chris and Jamie for hosting us. And so thank my colleagues for this wonderful collaboration.
And thank you for presenting today, all of you. It was incredibly informative. It was eye-opening and a great way to end our week. Chris, I'll hand it off to you to finish the week.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, Jamie. I mean, I really, I wish you had more time. I mean, I could have listened to you all for another hour. You know, so thank you so much for presenting. And again, I do agree with Jamie. This was a great end to the week. For everybody that's still around, we will be sharing the recordings will be on the website, hopefully by early next week. We'll probably be reaching out with an evaluation survey. So if you could all fill that, we'd appreciate it. And again, thank you to everyone presented. And definitely please fill out the evaluation survey, since this is the first totally virtual conference we've done. We definitely are going to be looking for feedback to improve the experience, especially since we're probably not going to be meeting face to face for the foreseeable future. So, all right, with that, have a great weekend. If you're in our area or anywhere in New York, enjoy the great weather today, and good luck the rest of the semester.